This video, I'd like to speak on the challenges and the difficulties on why it's so hard to teach martial arts to kids. These are through my experiences, not just teaching my own children of 5, but also of teaching others, other people's children within this martial arts school that I've opened for the last 10 years. One of the difficulties lies in having a 2-person household, with the mother and father, and then the children. So the mother and father typically are not always on the same page. Sometimes the mother has her opinion, and then the father has his opinion. And then there's also the child's opinion. So as a teacher, I'm put in a position where there's kind of like a triangle of 3 people that I have to attempt to make an enjoyable experience or to satisfy all 3 parties. If the child does not enjoy the training because the child thinks it's too boring or too hard, too physical, or just not enjoyable to begin with, then the parents will not put the child in the class, because this is not a mandatory class. This is not like going to school where the children have to go. This is an optional schooling experience, an after-school activity that is optional. And not only is it optional, but the parents actually have to pay for it as well. So if the child doesn't enjoy it, then the parent or parents could be like, well, that's fine, then we just save the money and we don't have to waste the money over there. And in addition, they don't have to waste the time to drive here and then waste the time to wait for the child for over an hour till they're done, and then to drive them back home. So in their eyes, they're like, hey, the child doesn't enjoy it anyway, I get to save money, I don't have to drive, I don't have to wait. And in addition, because of the weather in Chicago, especially the winter, it's just unmotivating for a lot of parents to do that commute and to wait. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is the mother might not agree to the teachings of the school. So if the child likes the training and says, hey mom, I like the training, but then the mom is like, well, I don't like his style of teaching. Some parents have said, hey, I don't want my kids to work with Nerf guns. I don't want them to play with those. So they would essentially withdraw their child from the class because they don't want the children involved in Nerf guns. And the problem is, well, the other kids might enjoy it, and there might be over 10 kids in the class, and then just because one kid or one parent doesn't want that activity and then the other 10 are fine with it, it's unfair to the majority. So you gotta satisfy the mother. If she doesn't get satisfied, then she's gonna take the kid out of the class. But say if the mother's okay with the class, the child's okay with the class, and then you got the father. So the father might be like, same thing. He might not enjoy it. He might not agree with the teachings of the school. There's some students or some parents that have told me that they don't want their children to learn how to fight. And I say, well, we teach them how to defend themselves here. But then some of the parents don't want their children to learn or to spar, which is fine, because we don't do sparring all the time. But they could essentially, withdraw the child from the class because they don't want their children to learn those aspects of the martial arts. Other parents have come to me and said, hey, you know, my child is getting too aggressive in school. He's gotten into some fights, and I don't want him to participate anymore because it's making him more aggressive. So it's a very tough situation, because when I train an adult, I'm not asking for the permission of his parents in order to train the adult. The adult he either likes the training or he doesn't. If he likes it, then he comes back. If he doesn't like it, then he doesn't come back. There's no commingling with the adult's parents to see what their opinion is. But with the child, it's different. The child could love the class, but then the parents are not happy. And then they take their child out of the class. You know, other challenges are the parents may run out of money and they can no longer afford the class, so they take the kid out of the class. So there's all these different challenges, in addition what I mentioned about the commute time. You know, just imagine having to drive the child here for 30 minutes, drive them back home for 30 minutes. That's an hour of driving, and you gotta wait another hour while they're training. And 3 times a week. Summer, fall, winter, spring, dealing with the different inclement weather conditions. It's just very difficult to make everybody happy. You know, if I have, say, 20 students, 20 children in the class, imagine if each student had both their parents there watching the class, trying to dictate the class into trying to say that this should be done and that shouldn't be done. How difficult it would be for me as a teacher to teach according to the way that I naturally teach, when there's 40 people giving their opinion on how things should be done and how it shouldn't be done. You know, some parents are very gung-ho and direct me to, hey, you know, I want my child to learn how to defend themselves, so I want them to learn how to spar, so please engage them in the sparring more often. Some parents are pushing me towards having the children learn the forms and memorize the forms and perfect the forms. Some parents are pushing me towards having their children work on the fitness to lose weight. And you want to make the classes exciting as much as you can, not too boring, because you don't want the children to lose attention and lose focus and motivation. Because if they lose focus and motivation, then they don't even want to come anymore. Then now they just don't come. You know, and it's difficult. You know, in that situation, if there's 40 people trying to put their opinion on how things should be done, it's a very difficult situation. And that is the most challenging part of teaching children. And every parent has their preferred style in how they're going to raise their children. So some parents are more hard, a little bit more aggressive in their way of teaching. And they might have lower tolerances for certain things, lower patience. And it's more of like they might do some physical discipline. Other parents could be very patient and to the point where it's too relaxed, and they kind of let the child get spoiled or entitled, or they essentially let the child run the household. So there's those two different ways of raising children that are kind of opposite of each other. The very strict parent where what he says goes, and then a very relaxed parent where the child pretty much decides whatever he wants to do. And here I am as a martial arts teacher, a Kung Fu teacher, trying to teach my way. And then there could be some parents that try to come in here to persuade me to teach how they want me to teach. So then it becomes me not really teaching how I should teach and how I naturally teach, but I almost become like a puppet in the hands of the parent who is trying to control and dictate my style of teaching. And that, to me, doesn't sit well with me. So inevitably, there comes times and moments when I have to stand my ground and be very assertive in my approach, and to let the parents understand that this is the way the school is, this is our teaching method, and if you don't agree to it, you are welcome to search for another school that holds the values of which line up to your values. In my method of teaching, I try to make it as balanced as I can. Not too strict, but then not too carefree either. The way the structure of the kids' class is, the first 30 minutes, we always do the combat forms training, the fitness training. Always. And then the last 30 minutes is kind of a mixture of different elements related to martial arts. I feel that in order to run a martial arts school, label it a martial arts school, there has to be the element of self-defense and combat and self-preservation involved. And nobody's forced to do anything, but people are allowed to not participate in certain things if they so choose. But nobody, no parent, no child is allowed to come into the class to dictate what should and should not be taught. So meaning, if it's sparring time for the class, then the students that don't want to participate are welcome to not participate. But no student and no parent is allowed to come in here and say, well, because we don't want sparring, then nobody else can do sparring. You know, I don't condone violence, but there's an aspect of the martial arts where learning these combative techniques, learning how to defend yourself, learning how to stand up for yourself, learning to not allow others to bully you is an extremely important element of the martial arts that cannot be removed. If it is removed, then in my eyes it is no longer martial arts. It becomes something else. So I can understand if somebody took their child to a dance class, Zumba or something, and then all of a sudden a fight breaks out, and then the parent gets upset at the instructor for allowing the fight to occur, of course, it's understandable because this is a Zumba class, this is a dance class. This is not a martial arts class, so there shouldn't be any fighting there. But with what I'm doing, this is a martial arts school, and a part of what we do is training and preparing for confrontation that might occur. Training for dangerous situations that may occur and learning how to survive those dangerous encounters. So, to me, teaching other people's children martial arts is extremely difficult. There's a lot of variables involved. The training relationship could go great, but the family might move away. And once they move away, the training stops. The parents might lose their job and no longer could afford the training. The child could end up going to college, moving away because of college, and then the training stops. There's just so many variables involved that it's hard as a teacher to be motivated to push any student towards their full potential, knowing that the relationship is unstable. It's like getting involved in a relationship knowing that it's going to end. Then why bother pushing towards marriage? Because you know the relationship's going to end. You know, and it's a tough situation. That's why teaching martial arts to children of your own is what makes the most sense, because they're there with you, connected to you. And if you maintain that relationship through communication and time spent, that relationship should endure for your whole life, and not even just your whole life, but even after. Even after you pass away, your child should still remember your teachings and feel your presence within their lives. But when you're teaching other people's children, if the teacher and the father of that child, or the parents of that child, if the sifu and the parents do not see eye to eye on certain values, then the child is caught in the middle, not knowing who to listen to, but in the end of the day, they have to listen to their parents. Whatever their parents says is what goes. So when a martial arts teacher is kind of being used as a puppet to facilitate the teachings of the parent, opposed to the teacher being allowed to be open and honest with his true way, it's opposing, it's contradicting. So a lot of it is the parents have to trust the teacher and his ways, and allow the child to grow within the school, and then the child can reach their potential through the trust of the parents. But if there's no trust, if there's skepticism, then there's no way that the true learning could occur, because you have the parents who are essentially trying to oppose the teachings of the teacher, and in that case, the child might as well leave the school and learn from the parent according to the parent's values and ideals. So in this martial arts school and in all martial arts schools, none of it is mandatory. These are all optional. Not only is it optional, but money has to be, given. Tuition has to be paid in order to receive these teachings. And with just like everything out there, if you don't pay your cell phone bill, then they're going to cut off the cell phone bill. You don't pay your gym membership, then you can't go to the gym anymore. You don't pay for gas, then you can't drive your car because there's no gas. Like, once the child loses interest, all he has to do is, hey, I didn't enjoy my time in class today, so tell his parents I don't want to go anymore, and then that ends right there. There's not going to be child services or the police calling the parents to say, hey, why isn't your child in Kung Fu school anymore? It just happens in a split moment. Once the child or one of the parents decide that they don't want to train anymore, then the training stops. So that's what I wanted to share. I thank everybody for all your support. Take care.